I ran away at 16 after my sister stabbed me, but parents said it's my fault. Years later, they want me to apologize because I made them look bad. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit! I've been hesitating to share this for years, but I need to get it off my chest. When I was 16, my sister stabbed me with a kitchen knife. My parents blamed me for it and watched me bleed and did nothing. I ran away that night with nothing but a backpack and a bleeding shoulder. 7 years later, they tracked me down, demanding an apology for embarrassing the family. Here's how it went down. I'm 23 male, 2 years older than Anna, 21 female. When she was born, it was like someone flipped a switch in my parents' brains. Dad always talked about wanting a daughter to teach how to throw a softball and take to daddy-daughter dances. Mom immediately had her new shopping buddy and best friend. Me? I was the practice kid, the one they'd already figured out their parenting mistakes on. My dad manages a medical equipment territory covering 3 counties in Ohio. Mom does insurance billing for a dental practice, part-time flex schedule so she could handle Anna's constant appointments. Classic suburban setup with the Honda Pilot in the driveway and a mortgage they'll be paying until retirement. Anna's problems started around age 7. Not normal kid meltdowns, full psychotic breaks where she'd scream until she passed out, punch holes in walls, threaten to kill herself with craft scissors. My parents dragged her to every specialist between Cleveland and Columbus. Psychiatrists, behavioral therapists, even this quack chiropractor who claimed he could fix mental illness through spinal adjustments. The diagnoses changed every 6 months. ADHD became bipolar, became oppositional defiant, became anxiety with depression. Each new label came with different medications, different therapy approaches, different excuses for why Anna couldn't control herself. But the family dynamic never changed. Anna was sick, so Anna needed protection. Anna was struggling, so Anna got first priority on everything. Anna was having a bad day, so everyone else had to manage their lives around Anna's feelings. My parents had this philosophy about raising boys versus girls. Dad would tell his buddies at work how he was making me tough and independent, ready for the real world. Meanwhile, Anna got handled like she was made of glass. When I complained about Anna destroying my stuff, I got lectures about being the bigger person. When she hit me or threw things at my head, I was told to understand her condition. When I asked why she could get away with anything, I was being insensitive to her mental health struggles. By 14, I was basically Anna's unpaid psychiatric aide. My job was keeping her calm, giving her whatever she wanted, and serving as her personal punching bag when she needed to release frustrations. My parents literally told me this, that sometimes Anna needed to take her anger out on someone, and as her big brother, I should be understanding. The police visit started when I was 15. First one was Anna locking herself in the bathroom with a box cutter, threatening self-harm because my parents wouldn't let her dye her hair blue. I had to kick down the door while Dad called 911. The responding officer was this older guy, maybe 5 years from retirement. He surveyed the scene, Anna sobbing, parents hovering, me standing there with wood splinters in my sock, and asked if I was hurt. Mom jumped in immediately. "Oh, he's fine. He's so good with his sister. We're just dealing with a mental health crisis." The cop looked at me again, then at my parents, then wrote his report. Domestic disturbance, mental health episode, family cooperating with treatment, file closed. That became the standard response. Anna would have an episode, cops would show up, parents would explain her condition, everyone would focus on getting Anna whatever support she needed. I was always cast as the responsible older brother helping his troubled sister. Nobody asked what this was doing to me. Nobody ever asked. Living with Anna was like sharing space with a hurricane that could hold grudges. You never knew what microscopic thing would set her off or how much destruction would follow. She'd go through my room whenever I was at school or work, taking whatever caught her attention. Gaming headset, hoodies, cash from my dresser drawer. When confronted, she'd either flat out deny it or start crying about how I hated her and she just wanted to feel connected to her big brother. My parents' solution was always the same: just let her have it. Don't make waves. She's going through a rough patch. Be the mature one. I started keeping everything important in a gym locker at school. Had to eat lunch in the computer lab most days because I was spending meal money replacing things she'd broken or stolen. Learned to hide cash in places she wouldn't think to look. Inside old textbook covers, taped under my desk drawer. The violence escalated gradually. Started with normal sibling hitting when she got frustrated, then scratching with her nails, biting hard enough to leave marks, throwing household objects at my head. One afternoon, she chased me around the kitchen island with a Phillips head screwdriver because I wouldn't give her my laptop password. My parents were always around for the aftermath, but never witnessed the actual attacks. They'd find me bleeding or bruised and ask what happened. When I explained, they'd sigh and ask what I'd done to trigger her. Then, they'd go comfort Anna while I cleaned myself up in the bathroom. School staff started noticing the marks. My sophomore English teacher pulled me aside after class and asked about the fingernail scratches on my forearms. I made up some story about helping my dad clear brush in the backyard. She didn't buy it. You know you can talk to me if something's going on at home, right? There are people who can help. I wanted to tell her everything. How I'd started barricading my bedroom door at night because Anna would sometimes come in during her episodes. How I was failing algebra because I couldn't concentrate on anything except surviving until graduation. How I'd lie awake listening for footsteps in the hallway. But what was I supposed to say? That my parents were decent people dealing with an impossible situation? That Anna couldn't help her behavior due to brain chemistry? That's all anyone would hear. So I said everything was fine at home. Mrs. Rodriguez looked like she wanted to push further, but backed off. The isolation was crushing. I couldn't bring friends over because you never knew when Anna would have a meltdown. The few times I tried, she'd inevitably do something that scared them away, threaten them directly, smash something valuable, start screaming about how everyone was plotting against her. The disaster happened on a Thursday in March, 3 weeks before my 17th birthday. I remember because I'd been counting down days until I could legally leave. I got home from work around 9 p.m. and was trying to catch up on chemistry homework. Had a test Friday, and I was already behind because I'd been picking up extra shifts to avoid being home. Anna was in full rage mode. She'd been suspended from school for threatening to push another girl down the stairs and was pissed about missing some party that weekend. My parents had grounded her, which meant she was looking for someone to punish. I was at the kitchen table with my textbook and calculator, trying to memorize molecular formulas. Anna came downstairs tearing through cabinets and drawers like she was looking for something. "Where's my money?" she demanded, spinning to face me. I looked up from my homework. "What money? Don't act stupid. I had $60 in my room and now it's gone. You're the only one who goes in there." This was complete bullshit. I avoided Anna's room like it was contaminated with plague. "I haven't been in your room. I don't know about any money." "Liar!" she screamed. "You always steal my stuff. Just because you have some shitty job doesn't mean you can take from me." The accusation hit wrong. I worked 40 hours a week, covered for people constantly, saved every dollar I earned. The idea that I'd steal from anyone was insulting. "I didn't take your money, Anna. Maybe you spent it and forgot. Or maybe you put it somewhere else." That was the wrong response. Her face went red and she started screaming about how everyone in the house stole from her, how nobody respected her property, how she was sick of being treated like garbage. Standard Anna tantrum. I kept trying to study, hoping she'd get bored and find someone else to torture. But she was building steam. Started throwing stuff, napkins and mail from the counter. Then she grabbed this ceramic coffee mug my mom liked and smashed it against the wall. I had homework to finish. I had a test tomorrow. I was tired of being falsely accused every time she had a mood swing. "I didn't take your money, Anna. I need to study. Find someone else to argue with. Leave me alone." That set her off completely. She started screaming about how I was a thief and a liar, how I got away with everything, because I was the golden child now. Then she yanked open the knife drawer and grabbed the 8-inch carving knife. "You want to keep lying to me?" she yelled, waving the blade around. I should have run. Instead, I just sat there staring at her, thinking this was another empty threat. She lunged across the table before I could react. The knife went straight into my left shoulder, right above the collarbone. Pain exploded through my whole upper body, and I fell sideways off the chair. Then she dropped the knife and immediately started crying. Not because she'd hurt me, but because she'd scared herself. The reality of what she'd done hit her all at once. My parents came running. Dad first, then Mom. And the first thing out of my mother's mouth was, "What did you do to upset her?" I'm standing there with blood running down my arm, pooling on the kitchen floor, and they're asking what I did wrong. "Look what you made her do," Mom yelled at me while Anna sobbed in the corner. "She's having a breakdown because of you." Dad grabbed some dish towels and started pressing them to my shoulder, but he was watching Anna the whole time, making sure she was okay. "We need to call Dr. Martinez," Mom said. That was Anna's therapist. "What about the hospital?" I asked, looking at the blood soaking through the towel. "Stop being dramatic," Dad said without even examining the wound properly. "It's not that deep." But it was that deep. I could see white stuff. It needed stitches, maybe surgery. Instead, I got a dish towel and a lecture about being more patient with my sister. They spent the next hour on the phone with Anna's medical team, discussing whether she needed to be admitted somewhere for observation. Nobody asked if I needed medical attention. I had to step around my own blood puddle to get to my room. I sat there with my shoulder wrapped in red towels, listening to them comfort her through another breakdown. Like she was the victim in this situation. That's when it hit me. They were never going to choose me. Not once, not ever. Anna would always be more important. I could bleed to death in the next room, and they'd find a way to make it about her emotional state. The realization was actually liberating. If they didn't want a son, they didn't have to have one. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep. Anna's room was directly across from mine, and I could hear her talking to herself through the wall. My shoulder was still bleeding through the towels. Every time I moved it, fresh blood would seep through the makeshift bandage. But I was done waiting for someone to care about that. I packed light. 2 t-shirts, a hoodie, the jeans I was wearing, and a phone charger. Everything fit in my school backpack. I grabbed the $43 I had saved from mowing lawns and shoveling driveways, money I'd been planning to use for new gaming headphones. I unlocked the back door as quietly as possible and walked out. Didn't take my phone. They could track that. Didn't leave a note. What was there to say? I just walked down the driveway and never looked back. The first night was brutal. I ended up at a 24-hour gas station about 2 miles from home, hiding in their bathroom. The attendant didn't care as long as I wasn't causing trouble or trying to steal anything. I used paper towels to try and rewrap my shoulder, but it was still bleeding pretty bad. By morning, I realized I had no plan beyond get away from there. $43 doesn't last long when you're buying food and trying to stay warm. I ate a pack of crackers for breakfast and tried to figure out what homeless people actually did during the day. Turns out they walk around a lot. You can't just sit in one place. People notice. Store managers, security guards, cops, they all notice when someone's camping out with no money to spend. You learn to keep moving, look like you have somewhere to be. I found a public library that stayed open late. You could sit there for hours as long as you pretended to read something. The bathroom had soap and running water, so I could clean my shoulder properly for the first time since it happened. It was worse than I thought. Deep, jagged, probably infected, but it was mine to deal with now. The first week, I survived on what I could scavenge. Gas stations throw away a lot of food that's still perfectly good. Construction workers leave half-eaten lunches in their trucks. You learn to eat fast and not be picky about where your meals come from. I figured out the shower situation by watching other homeless guys. There's a community center downtown that lets you use their facilities if you volunteer for an hour first. Mostly just moving chairs around or sweeping floors. Small price to pay for feeling human again. Finding places to sleep was the real challenge. The first few nights I tried sleeping rough, behind dumpsters, under bridges, in 24-hour laundromats. But it's dangerous out there, especially for a skinny 16-year-old with no street experience. Older guys would mess with you just because they could. I got lucky when I met Tommy, this guy who worked nights at a scrapyard on the edge of town. He let me crash in an old travel trailer on the property in exchange for helping him sort metal during his breaks. It wasn't much, no heat, no running water, holes in the roof, but it was mine. Nobody could kick me out for existing. Tommy was probably in his 50s, weathered face and hands like leather from years of manual labor. He never asked why I was on the street. Most homeless people don't ask those questions. Everyone's got reasons, and they're usually bad ones. He taught me the survival basics. Which churches gave out food, which shelters were safe versus which ones were full of crazy people and drug addicts, which cops would hassle you for no reason, and which ones would leave you alone if you weren't causing trouble. The weird thing was how quickly I adjusted to street life. After years of walking on eggshells at home, living homeless was almost relaxing. Nobody was going to scream at me for breathing too loud. I could just exist without constantly apologizing. Winter was rough. That trailer had no insulation, and heating it with a space heater ate up most of the money I could scrape together. I learned to wear multiple layers of everything, sleep in a sleeping bag Tommy gave me, and spend most daylight hours somewhere with heat. My 17th birthday came and went in silence. I was working a day labor gig, loading trucks at a warehouse. The supervisor paid cash at the end of each shift. No questions, no paperwork, no background checks. I used that day's pay to buy myself a decent pair of work boots and a sandwich from the deli next door. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid to go to sleep at night. Living rough teaches you things fast. Real things. Practical things that school never covers. Like how to spot which jobs pay cash and don't ask for ID. How to make $20 stretch for 3 days. How to tell the difference between someone who might actually help you and someone who sees you as an easy target. The day labor scene became my regular income source. Every morning at 6 a.m., about 30 guys would gather in a parking lot behind Home Depot. Contractors would pull up in trucks and pick whoever looked strongest and most reliable for whatever job they had that day. Moving furniture, digging ditches, cleaning construction sites, demolition work, grunt labor that paid maybe 50 bucks if you were lucky and the contractor wasn't a cheapskate. The work was hard, but it was honest and nobody cared about your background story. I was young and could work harder than most of the older guys, so I got picked pretty often. The trick was showing up clean, sober, and ready to work. Half the guys there were dealing with serious problems: addiction, mental health issues, legal troubles. I just needed steady work. After a few weeks, this contractor named Mike started requesting me specifically. He did small remodeling jobs around the city: kitchens, bathrooms, basic electrical work. Nothing fancy, but steady money and actual skills training. Mike was different from the other contractors. He actually cared if you learned something instead of just using you for manual labor. He'd explain what he was doing while we worked, show me how to read electrical diagrams, and teach me which tools worked best for different jobs. "You're smart," he told me one day, while we were installing a ceiling fan in some lady's kitchen. Too smart to be living in that trailer forever. I'd never mentioned the trailer, but Mike was observant. He could tell I was homeless just by looking at me. The way I ate lunch like it might be my last meal. How I always volunteered for overtime work. The fact that I showed up in the same 3 shirts over and over. "You ever think about getting your GED?" he asked. I hadn't. School felt like something from a different life. Something that belonged to the kid who used to barricade his bedroom door. But Mike kept bringing it up, and eventually I started thinking about it seriously. There was a community college about 20 minutes away that offered night classes. It would mean less work time, less money coming in, but maybe it was worth the investment. The decision got made for me when winter hit hard. Day labor work slows down when it's cold and wet, and heating that trailer was eating up most of my income. I needed something more stable, more reliable. I walked into the community college's admissions office on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing my cleanest work shirt and trying to look like I belonged there. The woman behind the desk looked at me like I might steal something. She asked a lot of questions I couldn't answer honestly: where I lived, how I planned to pay for classes, why I dropped out of high school in the first place. I made up what I had to and told the truth where I could. The classes were harder than I expected. Not the material. That was mostly review of stuff I already knew. But sitting in a classroom again felt weird after months of manual labor. My hands were permanently stained from construction work, and I smelled like sawdust no matter how much I showered at the community center. Most of my classmates were older people who'd never finished high school, or young parents trying to improve their situations. Everyone had a story, and most of them were pretty rough. Made me feel less alone in the world. I passed the GED exam on my first try. Mike was more excited about it than I was. He took me out for dinner at a real restaurant. Not fast food, but a place with waiters and cloth napkins. It was the first time anyone had celebrated an accomplishment of mine in years. Mike's brother ran a plumbing company and was always looking for apprentices. It meant real training, real certification, real career potential. It also meant leaving the day labor world behind and committing to something long-term. The plumbing apprenticeship started when I was 18. Tony ran his business the right way, paid apprentices fairly, provided actual training instead of just using them for grunt work, and treated everyone with respect. The work was hard, crawling under houses in the middle of winter, fixing broken pipes in flooded basements, dealing with problems that had been ignored for years. But it was honest work that mattered. I threw myself into learning everything I could: pipe fitting, drain cleaning, water heater installation, basic electrical work for pump systems. Tony started me on simple repair calls, then gradually gave me more complex jobs as I proved myself reliable and competent. The apprenticeship program required 4 years of combined classroom instruction and on-the-job training. Most guys took 5 or 6 years to finish because they'd miss classes or get sidetracked by other opportunities. I was done in exactly 4 years, passed my licensing exam on the first try. The money was better than day labor, but more importantly, it was steady and predictable. I could plan ahead for the first time in years instead of living day to day. After 2 years in the program, I rented a small apartment across town. It had heat and running water and a door that locked from the inside. After sleeping in that trailer for months, it felt like luxury. I bought real furniture from garage sales and thrift stores. A bed, a couch, a kitchen table, a TV. Normal stuff that normal people took for granted. Every piece felt like victory against the life I'd escaped from. Work became my identity and my pride. I showed up early, stayed late, volunteered for the jobs nobody else wanted. Emergency calls, weekend work, The really messy jobs that made customers grateful when you fixed their problems, Tony noticed. After I got licensed at 22, he started sending me on the bigger service calls. After another year, he gave me my own company truck with my name painted on the side. Seeing Dave, licensed plumber, on the door never got old. Customers started requesting me specifically. Word spread that I was reliable, honest, and actually fixed problems, instead of just making them temporarily better. Tony offered me a partnership stake in the business, right before I turned 23. I'd been his most reliable employee for 4 years, handled some of his biggest accounts, even brought in new customers through word-of-mouth recommendations. The business partnership felt surreal, from homeless teenager to business owner in less than 7 years. We expanded the operation, hired 2 more apprentices, bought better equipment. I was making more money than my parents ever had. I bought a house. Small, needed some work, but it was mine. I spent weekends fixing it up, using all the skills I'd learned over the years. Every improvement felt like proof that I'd actually made it. The neighborhood was quiet, middle class, safe. My neighbors were teachers, accountants, small business owners, regular people living regular lives. They knew me as the polite guy next door who fixed their plumbing problems and kept his yard neat. None of them knew where I'd come from or what I'd survived. I liked it that way. The past felt like something that had happened to a different person entirely. My social life was simple but solid. Work friends, guys from the gym I'd joined, neighbors I'd helped with various home improvement projects. Nothing deep or complicated, but enough human connection to keep me grounded and normal. I dated occasionally, but kept things casual. Trust didn't come easy after growing up the way I had. Most women my age wanted relationships that moved fast, wanted to know everything about your background and your family. I wasn't ready for those conversations. Most nights, I'd sit on my back porch and just enjoy the quiet. After years of chaos and danger, peace felt like the ultimate luxury. I never thought about my family much during those years. When I did, it was like remembering a bad movie I'd seen once. Unpleasant, but not real anymore. They belonged to a different life, one I'd left behind completely. That worked fine until they decided to find me. I still had an old Facebook account from high school that I'd basically forgotten about. Hadn't logged in since maybe 2019. One slow Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning out old email accounts and remembered it existed. That's when I saw them. My mother had been posting these manipulative, sympathy-seeking updates for years. Still hoping and praying for our son to come home. A mother's love never gives up. Some wounds take time to heal, but family is forever. The comments underneath were exactly what you'd expect. Neighbors and family friends offering support, saying they were praying for our family, asking if there was anything they could do to help find me. It made me sick. These people thought I was some troubled kid who'd gotten mixed up in gangs or substance abuse. They had no idea what I'd actually escaped from, or why I'd needed to disappear. The posts painted a picture of grieving parents desperately searching for their lost child. But I knew better. If they'd actually been searching, they would have filed police reports. They would have done something besides perform grief on social media years after the fact. I scrolled through years of this performance, my mother sharing carefully selected memories of better times with photos that made our family look normal and happy. Even some of my extended family was chiming in with supportive comments and shared posts. All of it designed to make them look like victims instead of the people who'd created the situation in the first place. I should have just deleted the account and moved on with my life. But seeing my mother perform like that triggered something in me that I'd thought was buried. I sent one message, simple, direct. I'm alive. Leave me alone. Should have blocked them all and gone back to my peaceful life. But family has a way of finding cracks in even the strongest walls you build. My cousin Sarah got my phone number somehow, probably through workplace directories or public record searches. The calls started within a week, then emails to my work address, then more family members getting involved, all of them wanting to talk things through and heal old wounds. But they weren't interested in healing anything. They wanted me to come back and apologize. My mother actually had the nerve to tell me that I'd been overreacting to typical sibling conflicts. She said I'd made their lives harder by disappearing, forced them to deal with Anna's problems alone while worrying about what had happened to me. When I reminded her about the stabbing incident, she brushed it off completely. That was an accident. She never meant to hurt you. An accident. Like Anna had tripped while holding a knife, and my shoulder just happened to be in the wrong place. The harassment escalated when I stopped answering their calls and emails. They started showing up at my workplace, calling Tony and pretending to be potential customers. Even tracked down some of my neighbors to ask questions about me. They found my email through the business website and started sending messages daily. Not just my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely remembered, Family friends I hadn't thought about in years. All of them acting like I was the problem. My Aunt Linda actually wrote, "Your parents sacrificed everything for you and Anna. The least you can do is show some gratitude and respect." Sacrificed everything. Right. They'd sacrificed me for Anna's sake, but apparently that didn't count. Then my mother decided to show up at my house. I was fixing a leaky faucet in my kitchen when I heard the doorbell. Through the window, I could see her standing on my porch. She'd brought backup. My father was waiting by their car in the driveway. I didn't answer the door. She rang the bell again, then started knocking, then pounding hard enough to rattle the door frame. For 20 minutes, she kept at it. Knocking, ringing the bell, calling my name through the door. The neighbors started looking out their windows. Finally, I opened the door before they could cause more of a scene. "There's my boy," Mom said with a fake smile, like this was a normal family visit. They pushed past me into my house without invitation. Just walked right in like they belonged there, looking around at everything I'd built. "Nice place," Mom said, examining my furniture and decorations. "You've done well for yourself. See what you can accomplish when you put your mind to it?" The condescension was immediate and familiar. Even compliments from her felt like insults. I shut the door behind them, not because I wanted them inside, but because I didn't want the neighbors getting a front row seat. "What do you want?" I asked, flat. Dad stepped forward, voice clipped. "You owe us an apology for how you left, for the mess you created." I blinked at him. "I left covered in my own blood while you two called Anna's therapist. Who should be apologizing exactly?" They didn't flinch. They'd rehearsed for this. Spent an hour in my living room running through the old routine. Guilt about Anna's condition spiraling after I left. Anger about the embarrassment I'd caused them in front of friends and coworkers. Fake concern about my mental health. And when the shame act didn't land, Dad snapped. "You humiliated us," he said, voice rising. "People ask questions. You ran off like a damn coward and left us to deal with the fallout." Mom cut in like she was playing peacekeeper. "Anna's been asking about you," she said gently, like that was supposed to mean something. "She's doing better now. Stable. Working. In a relationship. She wants to make things right." The room went quiet for a beat. The conversation went in circles for another 30 minutes. They weren't there to apologize or make genuine amends. They were there to demand my help in rewriting the whole story, to make me play the part of the prodigal son who'd learned his lesson and come home grateful. Finally, I'd had enough of the performance. "I want you both out of my house. Now." Dad stepped forward like he was about to puff his chest the way he used to. "You can't just kick out your own parents," he snapped. "You need to own the damage you caused." He tried the stare. That old trick from when he still had control. Held it for half a second. But then he saw it. I wasn't 16 anymore. And I wasn't scared of him. Not even a little. After they left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at the faucet I'd been fixing. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from rage. They'd walked into my house, my safe space, and tried to make me feel like that scared kid again. But something had shifted during their visit. For the first time in 7 years, I'd seen them clearly. Not as the powerful parents who'd controlled my childhood, but as two aging people desperate to maintain an image that was already cracking. They weren't powerful anymore. They were just pathetic. The phone rang that night. Mom again, like the visit hadn't happened. Her voice was different this time. Measured. Careful. "We need to meet again," she said. "All of us. Anna included. She wants to talk to you." "No. She's been stable for 3 years now. She's not the same girl you remember." "Good for her. Still no." She paused, then played what she thought was her ace. "She wants to apologize. Face to face." I should have hung up. But after everything, 7 years, a lifetime of damage, part of me was curious what her version of an apology would sound like. "One meeting," I said. "My house. Next Saturday. 2 hours max. Then you leave me alone permanently. All of you. No more calls, no more emails, no more harassment. We're done after this." There was a long pause. "Understood." That week crawled. I didn't sleep much. Couldn't stop thinking about them in my house again, trying to drag me back into their version of events. Saturday came. They showed up right on time. Anna looked older in the eyes. She walked like she was careful not to take up too much space. We sat in the living room in total silence. Mom kept scanning my place like she was inspecting a rental. Dad didn't even pretend to smile. Anna sat stiff, staring at the floor. Finally, she looked up at me. "You did good for yourself," she said. "I mean, really good. Better than anyone in that house ever gave you credit for." I didn't say anything. She swallowed hard. "I'm not here to get something out of this. I just need to say it." I nodded once. "Go on." "I know what I did to you, and I remember all of it. The screaming, the paranoia, The way I'd destroy your stuff and act like it was nothing. Her voice cracked a little. That night in the kitchen, I remember everything. She looked up again. I've been in therapy for years now. Real therapy. Not the kind Mom dragged me to while pretending everything was fine. And every time I think about what I did to you, it makes me sick. I wasn't just unstable. I was cruel. I chose you as my target because I knew you wouldn't fight back. Still, I said nothing. I wanted to hear it all. When you left, I hated you. I told everyone you abandoned us. But the truth is, I knew why you left. You had to. We weren't a family. She continued. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a relationship. I had to say it to your face. I heard Mom sigh like she was getting bored. Dad shifted like he wanted to jump in and take control, but neither of them moved. Anna stood up slowly and walked over. I thought she was going to reach for her bag or something. Instead, she hugged me. She clung to me like someone who wasn't asking to be let back in, just grateful to still be standing in front of the door. I didn't hug back, not right away. She pulled away after a few seconds, eyes full of tears. I'll go, she said quietly. That's all I needed. That's when Mom jumped in, like she couldn't stand not being the center of attention anymore. We've all made mistakes, she said, putting on her therapy voice. We need to move forward now, as a family. I looked at them, then back at Anna. No, I said flat. Anna made mistakes and owned them. You two made choices. You watched it happen. This doesn't end with hugs and group therapy, I continued. You came here to make you feel better. You still think I'm the problem. You still think I owe you something. I looked at Anna again. I forgive you. Anna blinked. Not because you earned it, I added, but because you did the one thing these two never did. You admitted it. Then I turned to my parents. But you don't get that. Not now. Not ever. You don't even know what you're apologizing for. They didn't argue. They just stood there, stunned. 20 minutes later, they were gone. Anna looked back once before getting in the car. Thank you. I gave her a small nod. That was all she needed. I locked the door and went back to the kitchen. The wound was still there, but it wasn't open anymore. I didn't need parents who saw me as collateral damage. I didn't even need a sister who finally found her conscience. But for the first time in years, I wasn't alone in that memory anymore.